Hi there, Tyler here from the Unemployed Architects, here for round 2 of the Weekend Warrior Show Recap podcast. Anybody who listened to the first one, I really appreciate it. Kind of the idea, I think, with these first ones, or I'm not really going to promote them very good because I would like to get as good at this as possible before I start saying, hey, listen to this. And I just want to get better at talking in general because, like I said, I don't think talking is really my strong point, so trying to get better at it, because that is part of the business, unfortunately. Anyway, so this weekend we will be talking about the Trading Post Saloon in Springfield and PK's UnKorked in Pontiac. Leading up to this show, I'd been having some car issues, probably something like a month or month and a half of my brakes not really responding properly, and some other little things here and there, and they weren't imperative because, the car was still running and I kind of knew how to operate them. So, but I figured, driving to Springfield and my car just sat for a whole weekend because we went down to New Orleans. So anyway, I scheduled some work to get done on the Friday before the show because I wanted my car to be good before we drove an hour down to Springfield for the Trading Post show. So I had to work that day because somebody needed the day off over at Kidder. So we don't open till 9, but the earliest I could get the car in was 7:30. So they ended up giving me a ride to work, and then I just kind of had to hang out there for a little over an hour before we opened. Then I worked all day. They came to pick me up to get the car. I had to go get it all loaded and stuff. The show was 8 to 11, so had a little bit of time after work but still in a little bit of a rush. And of course, by then it was snowing pretty hard. So load the car, get ready to go, kind of hoping that, it stopped snowing, but of course it didn't. And I was being really stubborn because I just put so much money into my car. I didn't want to miss out on the money from the show. So I just I'll just drive slow, it'll be fine. And of course, long story short, we end up in a ditch. Wasn't even driving 60 miles per hour, changing lanes. I must have hit some black ice or something, and we ended up in a ditch. So called the show and pretty much was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and cancel tonight. And we were about, 30 minutes from Bloomington and about 30 minutes from Springfield, almost exactly in the middle. So that was kind of the worst place it could have been. Anyway, so we waited about an hour and a half. Tow truck comes, gets us out. Down the road, we're outside paying them for the tow, and I mentioned that we're in a band and we're disappointed we're not going to be able to get to our show. He's like, where are you guys playing tonight? And I was like, yeah, we're down in Springfield, but I don't think we're going to go because, it's pretty bad out, obviously. And he was like, if you drive 3 minutes up the road, closer to Springfield, it pretty much clears up completely. So we called the bar, and they were they didn't care at all. They were just super cool about everything, kept saying really nice things, and ended up and said, yeah, you can just do a later set. So we ended up and drove pretty slow the rest of the way there. I think we got there around 8:30. I decided to do a pretty small setup because I didn't want to stress myself out even more. So just played acoustic, and we ended up doing a 9:30 to 12:30 instead of an 8 to 11. And the crowd, it was a good crowd, and a lot of them came up and talked to us about, our little accident that we had. So seemed like somebody had been relaying the message to everybody, and that was definitely cool. And that, I think, ended up and got us some better tips. So, show was good. You never know with that crowd. Sometimes it's kind of a weird one. But by the end, people were up and dancing. And I didn't even do the foot drums. That was kind of a thing I decided to sacrifice since usually I like doing the foot drums there because it's hard to get people even to pay attention, let alone start dancing. But on this night, it ended up and they started dancing without the foot drums. So I wasn't necessarily in the best of spirits, obviously, because of all the stuff on the way there, being in the ditch for so long, and some of that time I was spending, digging it out and trying to rock it out, and I was pretty much covered in dirt. definitely my whole left pant leg was just complete dirt. So I played the whole show that way, which was weird. But anyway, so I didn't really feel like doing a whole lot of talking. So I ended up and played just song into song into song into song, as many in a row as I could for most of the night. And I did mostly covers because I just knew that if I played those, the sing-along type songs, people would be more into it. And since I wasn't doing the foot drums, I kind of compensated that way. And, it turned out to be, I think, a good idea. And it let me kind of not really have to say a whole lot, like I was saying. Because I was having a lot of fun during the music, because I was, only thinking about that. But then, all the in-between times, like, oh, what's going to happen with my car? I hope we're going to make it home. All that kind of fun stuff. So, but the music definitely helped pull me out of kind of that funk eventually. And it ended up being a really good night. Anyway, so the show went really good. Got loaded out. We were probably like 1:30. And it was still real cold, so pretty good ice on the roads. We kind of debated whether we should stay, but I just decided, since I was pretty wired from the show and from the stuff before the show, that I would just drive home. But I decided to drive home super slow, like 35 on the interstate with my hazards on, which made for like an hour, pretty much doubled. I think 45 was like the fastest I went the whole way home. So I took about 2 hours. And then, sleep a little bit, get up. I think Laurelyn actually had to work the next day. But she had hurt her ankle really bad, I guess, from trying to get the car out of the ditch. Because she kind of mentioned it the night of, but the next day in the morning she was limping a little and talking about it a little. So, she ended up and didn't come to the second night because her ankle was bugging her so bad. So anyway, the next night was PK's. I had asked Blair to come to this show since we were doing WEFT, WEFT, which is a Champaign radio station, on Monday. We were already booked, and we hadn't really been playing together as much lately, so I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of get a little tighter for the WEFT thing on Monday. So we met down there, and, the roads were a little bit iffy, and of course it started snowing, and of course we were worried about people even showing up, because we got there and it was completely empty. We got there a little early, though, because I knew with the roads, and I was going to be driving extra slow because of the stuff with the car the night before, so I left pretty early, and all my stuff was already pretty well loaded from the night before. So we got there, and I had plenty of time to set up. We decided to do a different sound setup. Pretty much every time we play there, it seems like we do a different sound setup, and it was probably the quietest setup we've ever done. And we did like a speaker in the back of the room, kind of pointed towards us, and then one, regular pointing main, and a monitor. The one in the back of the room was turned down pretty low, but we thought we could spread out the sound a little bit and keep it at a lower volume, which ended up and worked out pretty good. But, people started filtering in pretty fast after we started, so we just kept turning it up and turning it up and turning it up, and it sounded really good. So by the end of the night, I think we were about double the volume that we started at. So we were pretty focused on dynamics during this show because we were playing just acoustic, especially because Blair and I, like I said, hadn't played together in a while. And there's something, it's like a whole different thing kind of just playing acoustic because, when we normally play together, I'm doing the foot drums, or he's got his drum machine with backing tracks. So that kind of keeps us in rhythm without having to think very hard about it. We just play to the drums, so, but when you're playing acoustic, and especially because I cover, like, a lot of the songs, not a lot, but a good amount of songs Blair does pretty regularly. Myself, when I play by myself, when I play them probably at a different tempo, or maybe different form, so really have to focus in a different way, really pay attention to the other person's kind of movement, and really listen to them, the person that's singing the song kind of sets the tempo for what the other person should be doing. And Blair kind of lectured me on that at the beginning, because he knew how I would probably be kind of, because I tend to just be loud and kind of take control of some of his songs sometimes when you play like that. So, plus we're playing really quiet, so I wouldn't be hearing a lot of his guitar necessarily. So, because he was playing out of a little amp instead of the PA, so and it wasn't really pointed at me, so I wasn't going to be able to hear it greatly. But anyway, so after we got kind of through the first few songs and that uncomfortability, it pretty much got pretty packed. I mean, that place is pretty small, so to feel packed, it really only takes like 30 people to feel, like it's a full house. But a lot of the tables were there to see us, which was, a pleasant surprise. And when people actually come to see you, you get more of a chance to play more originals and maybe some of those covers that you don't play that much because, not as many people know them. So that, it's a different kind of fun, but it was a good one. I had a lot of fun at that show. Probably one of my favorites in a while. So that was the shows this weekend. Again, this is the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen. There'll be more to come here this next weekend. We will be back in Davenport, Iowa for our show at Kilkenny's, and that'll be a 2-night thing again. So I'll be talking about that next week. Thanks again for listening, and have a fantastic week.